trying to finish up these 3 final readings on the angles. And so today, let's get into it. But let me just give it a minute for YouTube to kind of catch up, because YouTube has been acting a little funny for me on my go lives. And what happens is I'll do this great recording and then I go to upload it and everything is a shit show. It's all screwed up. And so today I want to do the readings of Melissa, and I'm looking over here to make sure, Melissa, Ashley, and Joscelyn. And I'm going to be using my one computer and probably another one, because there's a lot of information I have for you about how your chart changes on the angles. And the gist of this is basically to remind everybody that when you are learning your natal chart, it's super important for you to understand your angles, which is your rising sign. You, the personality you show the world, that's your rising sign. It's super important to understand the IC, the home life. What went on at home? What's the family unit like for you? The descendant angle, which is all about relationships. We're all in some kind of relationship of some sort, aren't we? That's an important angle to be familiar with. And then the midheaven, that's the career angle. Everybody is working on some form of career or reputation, or has been this lifetime. Those 4 angles are helpful energies to become familiar with, because the first one talks about your personality. The IC angle talks about your home. The third one, the descendant, talks about relationships. The fourth, the midheaven, talks about career. We're all, as humans, navigating that. But the key thing happens, and where the extra strength comes into play on these angles, is when you have planetary bodies. The Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, Pluto, North Node, South Node, asteroids, fixed stars. When they fall on your angles, it's a big, big tap on the shoulder moment. And the sooner you understand what that planet is trying to tell you, or that asteroid, or that whatever the planetary body is trying to tell you to learn about your chart, the better. And it's especially important when you get into studying and looking at the astrocartography, which is a map of the world and how these angles change when you travel, when you relocate. Maybe you live in Los Angeles, but when you go to Sydney, Australia, you're on a heavy-duty Jupiter midheaven line. But you would never have known that unless you looked at your astrocartography and knew your angles, and knew that a Jupiter MC line means Jupiter midheaven. So lots to become familiar with, but do not let this pass you by. I'm also going to talk about stelliums and how we can work on balancing our stelliums. But let me get started into the readings. I'm going to start with Melissa first. So hang on, everyone. Okay. So Melissa, you are from Connecticut. You were born in Connecticut, right? So that means your rising sign is a Scorpio. Your IC is a Pisces. Your descendant is a Taurus. And your midheaven is in Virgo. And the planetary energies on those angles that you deal with are the Sun in Scorpio, conjuncting that rising sign of Scorpio, and Uranus in Scorpio, conjuncting the rising sign of Scorpio. Now, Uranus is kind of a bigger orb. It's not as strong as the sun line, but regardless, it's within a 10-degree orb. So having the Sun and Uranus on your personality can mean many things. The Sun can mean you shine with your personality. Uranus can mean unexpected things happen to you, or you do unexpected things, or people perceive you in an unexpected way. In the midheaven angle, which is the only other angle where you have planets hitting those angles, you have Saturn at 0 degrees of Virgo, conjuncting your midheaven at 5 degrees of Virgo. So for you, Melissa, in Connecticut, the main angles where you have planets tapping you on the shoulder are both your rising sign with that Uranus and Sun, and the midheaven with Saturn there. Saturn conjuncting the midheaven, if you've had your natal reading done, tells you that your work and your career may be serious. Maybe you may be very dedicated. You may be a naturally hardworking, career-oriented, want to climb the corporate ladder leader in your career. Now, when we move your chart somewhere else, hang on. So let's say we decide, hey, how about taking a trip out to the West Coast, Melissa? So let's say you decide you're going to go out to Los Angeles, or maybe you've gone to Los Angeles, maybe you have desires to go to Los Angeles. How does your chart change in regards to those planetary energies on your angles? What happens to those energies? Because remember, what we're trying to accomplish is to understand what those planetary energies are, first of all, that are on the angles, which ones are on the angles, because we don't have tons of planets on our angles. Maybe we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it just depends. And what they're trying to say to us, do we enjoy the energy of those angles or do we not? Would we rather be somewhere else? Would we rather get some relief? You know, a lot of people live on a Saturn line don't like it. They want relief. So they have to look at where other parts of the country their chart is changing. For you, if you go out to Los Angeles, what happens is you no longer have the sun. You're no longer on your sun line, living on a sun line. The sun energy is always with you, but you're not living on it. Instead, in Los Angeles, you're living on both a North Node and Pluto in Libra line. And because why? Because your rising sign has changed to Libra. When you travel from the east to the west coast, the angles change, and the rising sign angle for you went from Scorpio in the east coast to Libra rising in the west coast. And now you've got Pluto and the North Node on your rising sign. So that means if you were to live in Los Angeles or vacation there, you would be feeling the energies of both that Pluto and North Node energy. Pluto is about power, transformation, endings, and beginnings. The North Node is karmic. And Libra rising is all about relationships, and more in relationships. You have no planets on the IC, but you didn't in your natal chart. And you have a South Node now conjuncting your Aries descendant in Los Angeles. This means South Node is in the relationship sector. That can mean your relationships are very karmic and they're familiar to you. There's no planetary energy. Saturn is no longer on the midheaven for you in the Los Angeles chart. Saturn has moved over to the 11th house. So what I'm getting at is this. In the East Coast, you have both the Sun and Uranus conjuncting your rising sign. So if you live in that area, you're living on those lines. You also have Saturn conjuncting the midheaven. But guess what? When you go out to the West Coast, you now are dealing with different planetary energies and lines, that being Pluto and the North Node in Libra on your rising sign, and in the relationship area, the South Node is in Aries. So only you will know how you enjoy this energy, how you will navigate this energy. The point is, when you move around, when you travel, when you take a vacation, these planetary energies tend to shift, just like they did in this example. Thank you so much. I hope that was helpful, Melissa. Now, let's go to Do, 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 do. Now we're going to go to Ashley from Ephrata, Washington. I don't know, did I pronounce that correctly, Ashley? I'm sorry. Ephrata, Washington. So Ashley, you're a sun sign of Cancer. It falls in the 7th house. Your rising sign is lucky Sagittarius. Your IC is Pisces. Your descendant is Gemini. And your midheaven, I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm at fault there. My apologies. Your rising sign is Sag. Your IC is Aries. Your descendant is Gemini. And your midheaven is Libra. And so, what are the planetary energies, though? Well, you've got Uranus conjunction your rising sign also at 23 degrees of Sagittarius. So Uranus is a big player for you in your personality. In the home life, you have very lucky Jupiter energy in the home. Jupiter rules expansiveness, luck, good fortune, luck in the family, luck in real estate, luck where you live, maybe, this lifetime. On the descendant angle, you have Chiron there at 24 degrees of Gemini, conjuncting 27 degrees of a Gemini descendant. Chiron in the descendant area natally can mean you attract wounded partners or you feel wounded in your relationships, or the relationship overcomes healing energies. The healer is in that angle. So only you would know what that would mean in regards to your relationships, right? In the midheaven area, you don't really have any heavy hitting planets there. So again, for you, you have the planet Uranus on your personality or rising sign. You have the planet Jupiter on your IC or home line, and you have you have Chiron, the wounded healer, on your descendant line in Washington. The question is, how do you like living in Washington? Is it working for you? Do you not like it? Do you like it? Do you maybe like some parts of it but not others? You remember, Uranus can be unexpected surprises on the personality. Now, let's see what happens when we have you go somewhere, take a trip, or you're vacationing somewhere. So let's move you to Hawaii. Or let's say you decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to go to Hawaii. What's happening for me in Hawaii? So in Hawaii, Ashley, you are still a Sagittarius rising. But Uranus is now not right on top of you. He's still in the first house, but he's not like right on there, heavy. Hi there, what's happening? Tapping you on the shoulder. You do not, let's see. Oh, you no longer have Jupiter on the IC angle. Jupiter's moved to the 5th house. As far as the descendant goes, you no longer have Chiron there either. And so the question to ask yourself, hang on just a minute. What am I doing here? What am I up to today? Oh, okay. Sorry about that. You know, Mercury is going retrograde, and I feel like the things that are coming out of my mouth are just a mess. So my apologies. Ashley, let's start over. Going to Hawaii. The Hawaii chart. Let's start over. In Hawaii, you're Sagittarius rising. Uranus is not conjunct your rising sign anymore, but it's in the 1st house. But Saturn is now on top of you at 15 degrees. That's a heavy hitting energy to have Saturn on top of your rising sign. There's no planetary energies on the IC. There's none on the descendant angle and none on the midheaven angle. So you don't have that lucky Jupiter influence in the Hawaii chart like you did in your natal chart. And so in Hawaii, having Saturn conjunct your rising sign could make you very serious, could make you be a total career-oriented individual. It may hold you back. So, have you been to Hawaii? Yes, no. What do you think of Hawaii? Know that when you're Hawaii, Saturn comes into play for you. Okay? Now, I'm going to go to the next person. And that is going to be Joscelyn. So, Joscelyn, you are from Los Angeles. And hang on. So, Joscelyn, you are Libra rising. In your IC energy, you're a Capricorn. Your descendant is Aries. And your midheaven is Cancer. As far as the heavy planetary influences on you, you've got 4 degrees of Scorpio in Mercury conjuncting that rising sign. It's kind of a wide orb, but Mercury is kind of a big player for your personality. Mercury is all about communications, writing, teaching, and talking, and that's right on top of your personality. In the IC or home life, you have both Neptune and Uranus. So Neptune can be about creativity, sensitivity, rose-colored glasses, addictions, and Uranus is the shock and surprise planet. Both of those are in the home life unit for you in Los Angeles. How has your home life been? Nothing is on the descendant angle for planets that you need to be concerned with, but you do have a 28-degree Mars conjuncting that midheaven. Are you an athlete? Do you work in the military? Do you work around being a leader, assertiveness, taking action, ammunition, law enforcement, the military, athletes, management? You have a very strong Mars energy in Los Angeles conjuncting your midheaven. That can make you be seen as a warrior type, someone who may love to debate. So for you, the planets that are heavy hitters for you are that Mercury on your rising sign, Neptune and Uranus on the IC or home line, and Mars in the career line. Now let's see what happens with your chart when we move you out of Los Angeles somewhere else. Now remember, I'm just using these as examples. You can relocate or work with your chart any way you want to. There's so many cities and states and countries and continents. This is just a mere example of how this can play out for some of you. Okay, now what if you go to London, what happens to your chart? So in London, you become an Aquarius rising. Your IC is in Gemini. Your descendant is in Leo. And your midheaven is in Sagittarius. So, what has happened is, on your Aquarius rising, you now have that Neptune and Uranus that were in the home life now on top of your personality in London, UK. There's no planetary energies on the home life angle, but there is in the relationship. Remember how Mars was in in midheaven? Now it's on the descendant for you. So Mars has moved to the relationship energy. That Mars energy is now showing up in relationships for you. As far as the midheaven goes, that Mercury that was on your rising sign in Los Angeles is now on top of you in your career in London. So London would bode well for a communications career. Communications is very mercurial. You also have the North Node and Jupiter and Venus conjuncting your midheaven in London, which can be luck and love and just overall great energy in the career sector. So for you, Joscelyn, when your chart moves from Los Angeles to London, you're dealing with a lot of planetary energies, more than you had. So now you've got Neptune and Uranus on your rising sign, just to reiterate what I was saying. You've got Mars on the descendant or relationship angle. Now you've got Mercury, North Node, Jupiter, and Venus up there in the midheaven. That's a lot of energy, Joscelyn, to navigate, but it's very favorable and great energy in the career sector. So I wonder how London has been for you. If you've been to London, know that you have some great planetary lines there. Okay, I am done with the readings and the season of giving freebies. I hope you all enjoyed these readings, and I hope you have a great holiday. Happy holidays to everyone. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever holiday you celebrate. I'd like to briefly talk now about stelliums, because I attract tons and tons and tons of people that have stelliums in their charts. Now, most people have at least one stellium. I find stelliums are very much popular. Having 2 or 3 is more rare, but there are lots of people that have one stellium, and the question keeps coming up: how do I work with this energy? What do I do? It overtakes me, people will say. I feel off balance, people will say. Well, of course you do. You feel off balance because you've got all these planets here and none here. 0, maybe. So what's going to happen when you have all the planets here, just use it as an example, and 0 over here? You're going to feel weighted down. You're going to be like, I'm lopsided. So as I mentioned when I first started talking about stelliums, the best thing you can do is understand your stellium and look to the opposite house to get balance. Look into the opposite energies to get balance. So if you have a ton of planets in the first house or rising sign, that's the house of self. Where you look for balance, where you need to look for balance, is over there in the 7th house, the Libra house, the house of relationships. Stop being so self-absorbed with yourself and self-focused and self-centered, and look to other people to balance you out. The same thing goes if you have a stellium in the 7th and you feel like, God, all I do is worry about relationships. Well, you do, because you have a stellium. So what you need to do, those of you with a 7th house stellium, is to focus more on you and what makes you happy and get a little selfish. True. What if you have a stellium in the 2nd? Well, this is all about money and material wealth. You need to look to the 8th house to balance it out. The 8th house is the house of Scorpio, and vice versa. If you have a stellium in the 8th, you need to look to the 2nd house. If you have a stellium in the 3rd house, what do you look to? You look to the 9th house, the house of Sagittarius, because the stellium in the 3rd is the house of Gemini. And so you want to look to the house of Sagittarius and the behaviors around Sagittarius to balance out your energy. Same goes for the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. Look to the opposite house energies and understand what they mean and start implementing those behaviors. Otherwise, you're going to feel so lopsided and you're not going to understand what's going on. Why can't I get any balance in my life? Well, look to your stelliums to get more insight on what that all means. We'll talk more about stelliums in the coming weeks. I don't really have a lot of time today to go into every single house stellium, but I wanted to basically just refresh your memory on how you can work with it if you feel off center. I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye for now.